Hello everybody! Do not underestimate your opponent. It can be very dangerous. I did it and I risked. 2021 Chess.com Daily Chess Championship. Round 1. Great tournament. More than 16,000 players. First time for me. I never played it before. Great tournament. And group number 8, all my opponents with a very low rating. So I expected many blunders. I expected to win easily every single game. 12 players, 22 games, many games, great. Okay. I was convinced that my opponents will blunder, probably not every single move, but very often, and a piece of cake to qualify to the next round. Only the winner or the winners in case of tie will pass through to the next round. And I was absolutely convinced that it was very easy to reach this second round. And really, all my opponents were blundering at the early stage, but one of them, an Indian player, S.M. Vedant, 1355 rated, very low rating, not only didn't blunder, but was pressing me. Okay, let's start from the very beginning with white, and this is the Berlin defense. Spanish Berlin defense, very well known. And against this variation, I play the standard moves. This is all well known. And okay, h3, bishop e7, okay. And this is a standard variation, and as far as I can in this variation, I try to repeat a very famous game played 1 year ago between Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and Alexander Grischuk during the FIDE qualification 2020. First leg, I don't remember exactly which round, but Maxime was absolutely winning at some point, and despite his winning position, more or less winning, he swapped 2 moves and the game ended in a draw because Grischuk was able to level this game. But with correct play, MVL would be winning. And this is the third time in a daily match that I try to repeat as far as possible that game. Not so easy because black must cooperate, but at least I play the same moves. Okay. Here the strategy is simple because black has the bishop pair here, but his pawn structure is damaged, and white can develop the majority on the king side. Not only, but this king cannot castle because black lost his right to castle, and his king must stay in the center. Okay, knight c3, king e8, bishop f4, and here we reverse it moves. More or less, we are in the game of MVL and Grischuk. h5, rook d1, bishop a6, knight g5, and now h4. And now we are out of the game because in this position Grischuk continued with rook h6, rook e1, bishop b4, a3 takes, h4, g4 takes, and here you can find this game anywhere practically, and in this position there are just 1 bishop for black, so this position is good for white. And Later on, uh, white swapped two moves, but the position was very good, very interesting, and I was trying to repeat this position in this game. Not possible because black played h4 in this position, and I continue with knight takes, pawn takes, and knight e4. Very logical. I think it's very logical. Eliminating a bishop. Now the two bishops are of the same column, and that's very important. Okay, b6 can be a move, b6, and king h2. The idea is to play g4. g4 now is not possible because h3 is hanging. So I played king h2, rook d8, and just a moment. We leave this game and we pass to the other game with reversed colors against the same opponent. This game is the board. Bishop e5 check, knight e7. This move is very popular nowadays, played by many top GMs, so I decided to play the same move. d4 takes takes, queen takes, a6 takes takes. Okay, seems to be normal move. Castle, and here I played a move, not the best move in this position. I played e5, an aggressive move, but this move, I was sure that my opponent would blunder any moment, because the other players were blundering. So I decided that e5 was very aggressive and was a good move. But it wasn't. Maybe it was better to play e6 in this position. Okay, queen d3, knight f6, and bishop g5. Bishop c6, bishop takes. And here there is a curious position, because this is a position where black has the two bishops and white has the two knights. And this is a typical position in which the two knights are better than the two bishops. Because this bishop is very poor, and this bishop makes more or less nothing. My opponent played knight c3, queen e6, and this is not a great move. I played, this idea is to play bishop e7, but with the queen on g6 attacking e4. That was my idea. Not a great idea. Knight e5, bishop d8. I don't trade. I don't trade at d5 because I think my bishop is a good bishop, and this is standard position. You can find this in various Sicilian variations. For example, the Sveshnikov. Okay, that's normal. The bishop on the 8 is not a great piece for the moment, but I hope to activate it sooner or later. Rook e1, castle, and knight b4. Okay, knight b4, and here we are at a very important position. After knight b4, and at the same time, the other game was in this position. And it becomes clear that the qualification was me or my opponent, because all the other players were blundering and my opponent was winning all the other games like me. So one of them will qualify, or both, in case of a tie. And in this position, I was still in the underestimating phase. And I played a very bad move. An imprecision that completely erases white's advantage, and based on a terrible overlook. I played knight g5. But this is not the best move, because I completely overlooked that after bishop takes, rook d5. Okay, I saw rook d5, but I was convinced that after c4 my position was completely winning. because rook takes d1, rook takes d1. And now I have a great advantage. I have the bishop, and my opponent has the knight. The pawn structure is damaged, as before, and I have the only open line, and I can develop my play g4 and so on. So I was convinced that I was completely probably not yet winning, but very much better. But after c4, my opponent played the rook d4. I completely overlooked it, completely missed this move. And this is an obvious move. What can I play here? Because now rook takes, knight takes is the only move, and my advantage is completely evaporated. The correct move in this position was rook takes d8 check before, must take before. For example, bishop takes, and maybe now knight g5 or rook d1. Also rook d1 is possible. Okay. And that's the correct sequence. I played knight g5, takes. I cannot take on d8 now because I lose a piece. Bishop takes back. Bishop takes, rook d5, c4, rook d4. What to play now? And now I was worried, very, very worried. Because now it's obvious that takes, I have no real advantage. And I started thinking very much, because in the meanwhile, the other game was becoming problematic. Okay, back to the other game, and after knight b4, I decided to play queen e6. That's a very ugly move, because it's completely wrong. Because I decided that knight takes, pawn takes, okay, d5 is no more weak. That's correct, but this is weak, this is weak, and this is still weak. So I have three weaknesses, three weak pawns. Very probably in this position, the correct move is rook c8, with the idea of taking here back with the rook. Okay, d5 is weak, I have the wrong bishop, but at least I have no weaknesses here. Yes, b7 is weak, but that's not a problem. Maybe this was better. Instead, I decided to play queen e6. This is a very, very ugly move. My opponent took and played rook d1, bishop e7, and c4. And here I realized that my position is worse, and I was really worried about my group, because only the first player will pass through to the next round. And here my position is difficult. And in the other game, this one, as you can see, my advantage was completely evaporated. So suddenly I realized that in this position, in these two positions, I must start thinking and not hoping for blunders, because this opponent will not blunder absolutely at all. It's obvious. So here I made another imprecision, because in this position I decided to react with f5. That can be a correct move. But I had another move, and I saw it obviously. Rook b8. This move seems to be a stupid move, because white can play b3, strengthening the pawn chain, and rook a b8 seems to be not working, because now a6 is hanging. Okay, but take back. First of all, white can play b3 any moment, with or without rook b8. First of all. Secondarily, after rook b8, b3, I didn't realize that the queen has no access to the third rank. And at the moment, I didn't realize that it was a problem. So I played f5, rook d2 can be a move, and rook d8, rook a d8. It's not possible to play d5, but at least I played f5. f5 is a must in this position. Rook d1, doubling the rooks on the d file, and queen g6. I don't like to take on e4 because, for example, takes and c6 is hanging. I don't know what to play here. Okay, I have the wrong bishop. White has no light square bishops, so this diagonal is not so dangerous, but I think in this position, queen g6 is better. Takes, hoping for a trade, queen trade, and okay, queen b3, and now I realized that this position, with the pawn on b3, queen b3, wasn't possible. And okay, I'm worse. In this position, I'm worse. I played rook b8, more or less the only move, and queen e3. And in this position, queen a3, attacking a6. I don't know what to play here. Desperation, maybe rook a8. I don't know. This position is very difficult for black. Okay. Fortunately, my opponent is going back and forth and seems to have no clear ideas, because queen b3, queen a3, yes, maybe queen a7 is a threat, but okay, it's not so important. And I played rook e8 because here there is a threat of c5 weakening e5, and I play rook e8 hoping for c5. In this position, c5 is not the best move. And I calculated all with c5, and I will show you later, after c5, what did I prepare. But we can come back to the other game. And in this position, I thought for a long time before playing c5, because this is a very risky move. But I didn't know what to play. King f7. Okay, pawn takes seems not to be the best move because I can play rook c1. But king f7 is a good move because now this rook is coming into play. I play rook d1, takes, and rook c1. But now rook b8, and black has a great counterplay. b3 and rook b5. Oh, first of all, black is a pawn up. Okay, I can take on h4. This pawn is not a pawn up. But in this position, bishop takes, I played bishop takes, is not the best move. Very probably the best move is rook c3, defending b3, because I must admit that after bishop takes, I completely missed rook a5. Completely confused. Now I cannot play rook a1 because knight takes b3. I cannot play rook c2 because it's hanging, and I cannot play a4 or a3 because b3 is hanging. So I'm losing a pawn, first of all, and I'm in a sort of position at Zugzwang here. What to play here? And I can play any move. Bishop d8. Bishop d8 was possible. Yes, but bishop d8, attacking this pawn, very probably takes a2, and black is okay. Okay. So I decided to play the only possible move in this position. And fortunately for me, it works. And the move is g4. Very brave move, because there is a check on f3, and then black can take on e5 and on h4. And my opponent, okay, I had to risk, because I was worse in the other game, and here I cannot lose. At least I cannot lose. I calculated very well all the variations, and decided to play. It was possible to give a check. And after king takes, king g3, knight takes, king takes, rook a2, f4, I think it's good for white. And it's good for white, because despite the pawn down, 5 against 6, these pawns are very weak. All black pawns are weak. I can play king h4, king h5, h4, h5, and then activate the rook somewhere. Okay, seems to be a good variation. And black didn't play it. Black played rook takes a2. Rook takes c5. Rook c2. Can be a move, rook c2. Rook a5, check, king g3. And here he played rook c3. Rook c3 can be a good move, but it's not so... Yes, it's a playable move. But maybe in this position it was better to take on h4. Simply take, king takes, and rook takes f2. And I can take these pawns, but this is weak, this is weak. I think it's not possible to win this game. My opponent played rook c3, threatening a discovery check. I played bishop d8, that's the only move. Knight takes c5 and king g2. Okay, I'm still a pawn down, but I'm attacking a7, c7. I'm losing b3. The position is... This game will end in a draw with correct play. Absolutely. My opponent played knight d3, threatening a check on f4. I took on c7, only move, rook b3 and rook a7. Okay, I leveled the pawns, 3 pawns against 3 pawns. I have the bishop against the knight. That's an advantage for me, but not a great advantage. He played king f6, correct move, absolutely. And now my idea is to get the bishop on e5. Because if I can get the bishop on e5, I'm winning or much better. So I played, first of all, f4. For the moment, I cannot play bishop e5 check, but this knight here is stuck. Okay, back to the other game. And in this position, I must admit that here I played rook e8, hoping for c5. c5 seems to win a pawn, but that's absolutely false. And I analyzed it correctly, all the next moves that lead to more or less an even rook endgame. d5, queen takes, bishop takes, knight c6. Apparently, white won a pawn, but rook f6, and here I think there is an exclamation mark here. Only this move. And I'm attacking the knight. Knight d4, bishop takes, rook e2, and this rook on the second rank is a great compensation for the pawn. My opponent played rook d2, I took on f2, takes, rook takes, rook e5, rook b6. Okay, here white is slightly better, it's still slightly better, but this game is absolutely draw, and now I'm risking nothing, because in the other game, this position I cannot lose, of course. So at worst, the 2 games will end in 2 draws, and okay, I won all the other games. Maybe he will win all the other games, and we will both pass through the next round of this great tournament. But there is another surprise. c5, h4, these are moves. I'm trying to put the bishop on e5. For the moment it's not possible, so I decided to advance my pawns. King g6, rook a6, king f7. My opponent is going back and forth. Okay, that's good for me. Rook c6, stopping the pawn. White has a small advantage, but not enough to win. That's for sure. And he decided to check me on b2. That's the completely wrong way to play. In this position, maybe king e7. Maybe king e7 is a move. I will play bishop e5, knight takes, pawn takes, and in this game I'm slightly better. It's a draw, but now a draw is good for me. My opponent started to check me, and this is the wrong way to handle this endgame, because this is the only way to activate my king. King f3, rook b3. Okay, if I play king g2, it's a repetition of moves. But I tried to play king e2. Okay, he went wrong with the first move. Why not went wrong on the next move? And here, the unthinkable happened, because my opponent lost on time. Okay, it was a daily tournament, 1 day per move, and 1 day, okay, many games were lost on time in this tournament, but I didn't expect it, because my opponent was playing very quickly, and he was playing good chess, and I didn't expect that he will lost on time. He lost on time this position. This position is more or less leveled, because I cannot win. After, for example, knight b4, rook takes, knight d5, what to play here? Okay, I'm winning a pawn, but I think this is a draw, and here king, very probably king e7 is also possible. King e7, what to play? Threatening, king d7, bishop e5, knight takes, pawn takes, and here rook h3, yes. That's over. I cannot win. It's a draw. But in this position, my opponent, no, just a moment, after king e2, lost on time. And very strangely, in the other game, he continued. So he lost on time, probably he forgot to move, because the game continued. This way, this is a draw. He played correctly this sequence. And in this position, the other game was over, so I was absolutely sure, even losing, that I will qualify to the next round. And also my opponent here drew another game, lost on time in another game, so one gift after another. I was first sure, and in this position I decided to offer a draw. Not the most correct option, because I must admit I was slightly worse, so I cannot ask for a draw, but I asked a draw, and my opponent accepted immediately. And this is the story of my qualification to the next round, to the second round of this great tournament, but I risked very, very much. I risked very, very much because, okay, I was convinced that my opponent will blunder. It didn't happen. Okay, guys. Never do not underestimate your opponent. It's the first step towards the defeat. Bye-bye.